July 26th, 1959. Somewhere above North Carolina. Lieutenant Colonel William Rankin is at the controls of his F-8 Crusader fighter jet at 50,000 feet. 50,000 feet. That's almost 10 miles above the surface of the Earth. At that altitude, the sky above you is a deep, airless violet, dark enough that stars are visible in the middle of the day. The horizon curves visibly. The stratosphere presses against the edge of space. Below him, there is weather. Not ordinary weather. A massive cumulonimbus storm system, the kind that meteorologists photograph and study, the kind that spawns tornadoes and drops hail the size of baseballs and generates lightning strikes powerful enough to split trees. The kind that aircraft avoid as a matter of basic survival. But Rankin is above it. The top of the storm reaches up toward him, but doesn't quite get there. He is above the clouds, above the turbulence, above all of it. Safe. And then, without warning, his engine seizes. Every pilot's nightmare. Total power failure. Fire warning lights flooding the cockpit. The aircraft, without engine thrust, beginning to lose altitude immediately. Rankin has seconds. He pulls the ejection handle. At 50,000 feet, into minus 70 degrees Celsius, without a pressure suit, directly into the top of the storm. What happens in the next 40 minutes has been documented, verified by the United States military, published in aviation and meteorological journals, and studied by researchers for decades since. Because William Rankin doesn't fall through the storm, he gets trapped inside it and survives. To understand what Rankin is facing in the first seconds after ejection, you need to understand what 50,000 feet means for the human body. At that altitude, the atmospheric pressure is roughly 1/10 of what it is at sea level. The human body is not designed for this. It is designed for sea level, or something close to it. Our tissues, our blood, our internal organs are all calibrated for an environment that does not exist at 50,000 feet. When Rankin clears the cockpit and is exposed to that near vacuum environment, explosive decompression begins immediately. His eyes swell. His sinuses expand painfully. His abdomen distends as the gases inside his body try to occupy more space than they had at sea level. Blood, exposed to the pressure differential, begins to form tiny bubbles in his tissues, the same phenomenon that kills deep-sea divers who surface too quickly. He is in serious physical distress before he has been outside the aircraft for 15 seconds. He is also at 50,000 feet, in minus 70 degrees, falling toward the largest thunderstorm in the region. His parachute deploys automatically at 10,000 feet, as designed. And this is where the story stops making sense. By the laws of physics, as most people understand them. Inside a mature cumulonimbus thunderstorm, the air is not moving in one direction. It is moving in every direction simultaneously. Rising columns of warm air creating updrafts that can exceed 100 miles per hour vertically. Cold air descending alongside them. Horizontal winds shearing across the system. Turbulence that can destroy aircraft that fly through it. When Rankin's parachute opens inside this system, it catches an updraft. Instead of descending toward the ground, he goes up, thousands of feet, straight up, deeper into the storm. Then the updraft releases him. He begins to fall. Another updraft catches the parachute. He goes up again. This happens repeatedly, over and over. For nearly 40 minutes, Rankin is a human yo-yo inside an active thunderstorm, thrown upward and dropped and thrown upward again by forces that have no interest whatsoever in his survival. Around him, lightning. Not the lightning you see from a safe distance. lightning that he is inside of. Lightning that cracks past him, close enough that the ozone smell is overwhelming. Lightning that illuminates the churning gray-green interior of the storm in strobing flashes. Hail, not from above, from every direction, driven by the violent internal winds of the storm. Stones the size of golf balls, some of them hit him. Rain so dense that, Rankin writes later, breathing becomes something he has to think about consciously because the air contains as much water as oxygen and his lungs need to work to separate them. And the noise. He is inside the thunder, not beneath it, not beside it, inside the mechanism that produces it. The sound is beyond what human ears are calibrated to process. He describes it as something felt more than heard. For 40 minutes. A normal parachute descent from 10,000 feet takes approximately 10 minutes. Rankin spends 40 in the air because the storm keeps throwing him back up. When he finally falls below the base of the cloud and can see the ground for the first time, he has drifted miles from where he should have landed. He comes down in a forest in rural North Carolina, his parachute tangled in the branches of a tree. He is alive, bruised across most of his body from the hail impacts, bleeding from cuts he doesn't remember receiving, temporarily blind in one eye from the pressure effects of the decompression, suffering from severe symptoms consistent with altitude decompression sickness. Alive. Physicians who examine him afterward are, by his account, somewhat at a loss to explain how. The decompression alone should have caused permanent damage or death. The hypothermia exposure should have been fatal. The hail impacts should have caused concussion or worse. The disorientation of being inside a storm without visual reference to the ground should have caused parachute malfunction. Any single one of those things, in a different order or a different combination, could have ended the story differently. None of them did. Rankin recovered. He returned to active duty. He later wrote a book about the experience, which he titled The Man Who Rode the Thunder. Because that is what he did. Not voluntarily, not heroically in the conventional sense. He didn't choose to enter the storm. He was thrown into it by equipment failure and bad luck and the physics of where he happened to be when the engine seized. But once he was inside it, he held on. For 40 minutes of conditions that no human being had ever survived before, and very few have survived since, he held on. He couldn't control the updrafts. He couldn't control the lightning. He couldn't control the hail or the rain or the disorientation or the altitude or the temperature. The only variable he had any influence over was whether he kept holding on. And he did. I think about Rankin's 40 minutes in situations that are nothing like being inside a thunderstorm. In situations where the thing happening isn't what I planned, and the forces at work are larger than anything I can directly influence. And the only real question is whether I'm going to hold on until it changes or let go before it does. The storm threw Rankin upward when he needed to go down, over and over again. That must have felt at some point like the storm was specifically designed to prevent him from reaching the ground. But it wasn't. It was just weather, just physics, just something that eventually, after 40 minutes, let him through. You don't have to be capable of surviving a thunderstorm. You just have to be capable of not letting go. Hit like if Rankin earned it. Subscribe. 3 days, next story. See you then.